Listen, I love Chuck Liddell, and I don't ever want to badmouth Chuck Liddell or even, people even think I'm remotely badmouthing Chuck Liddell. But the reality is, first of all, let's say this first. I heard last week the cokehead, Oscar De La Weirdo, is talking shit that I don't have any, place to tell guys when to retire. I don't tell friends when. First of all, it's called friendship. Friendship, you fucking cokehead. I've been friends with Chuck Liddell, for 20 years. And the reality is that Chuck Liddell retired when he should have retired. 8-9 years ago, however long it was. And Chuck Liddell's almost 50 years old and has no business fighting anymore. And the fact that the state of California even let that fight happen is disgusting. Disgusting. Chuck Liddell has an incredible legacy. He's a huge superstar in this sport. So of course, as a friend, anybody who claims to be a friend of Chuck Liddell and was anywhere near this fight is full of shit. They're not a friend of Chuck Liddell. To let him go in and fight this fight is terrible.
And it's not a case. It's not a case of you telling him to retire early. Obviously you guys were very close, and you don't want to see him get hurt.
That's the problem. Is Chuck Liddell is a fighter. Chuck Liddell loves to fight. That's his passion. It's what he loves in life. But there comes a day and age. Fighting is a young man's game. You can't do it. And Oscar fucking De La Hoya says, come over to Golden Boy where we respect the fighters, and it makes me sick what these fighters were paid and all this shit. Out of 14 fights on the card, 5 bouts were amateur fights, which means he didn't pay him jack shit, right?
Right.
And 12 of the professional fighters on the card made less than 3-3. What the fuck are you talking about, you cokehead junkie? And some of the guys on the card made 1,000 and 1,000. And you know what? He respects the fighters so much, he couldn't even remember their fucking names at the press conference. I hope somebody talks De La Hoya into fighting again, okay? I hope the state of California makes the fight, and I hope he gets fucking knocked out just like Chuck Liddell did in the first round. Fucking cokehead nutball.
Well, Tito even said afterwards that he would not have let Chuck fight.
Yeah, Tito's listen. Tito and Oscar De La Dummy were made for each other, man. Those two fucking nutheads. First of all, Tito says, "Hey, you guys want to get paid? Come over to Golden Boy MMA." Are you kidding me? Hey, my brother, wait a couple months till this whole thing pans out. Everybody's going to be suing everybody in a couple months. There was no money made over there. De La Hoya's a moron, an absolute moron. And I don't know how Chuck allowed himself to be talked into this stupid shit.
It's probably just one of those things where he wanted to fight, and Oscar De La Hoya told him what he wanted to hear.
Yeah, I agree with you, unfortunately.
Have you talked to Chuck at all in the lead up or since the fight? Have you guys spoken?
I did. I talked to him before the fight, but I haven't talked to him since. I'm at least going to give the guy a couple days, and I'll give him a call this week.
Yeah, I mean, and when he says something like, "Well, who's to tell fighters?" I mean, that's like saying, "Why have a ref? Who's to tell fighters when they're not knocked out?" I mean, there are people around you who kind of have to look out.
Well, you know who tells a fighter when it's time to hang up? His friend. That's who tells him when it's time to hang it up.
That's right.
His friend does.
Joe told, there's a famous, where Joe and Brendan Schaub were talking, and Joe told him, "Look, I don't know if you can do this anymore." And it's, I'm sure, a very hard conversation to have with a guy that you respect, but the fact that you care about him has got to come above possibly hurting his feelings or pissing him off.
100%.
Do you
100%.
Do you think this is purely financial for Chuck, or do you think that there was a combination of just wanting to get in there again? Because 8 years is a long layoff.
Listen, Chuck Liddell is a fighter, man. Chuck, when I asked Chuck to retire, he didn't want to either. He should have retired when he did, and he should have stayed retired. But like the cokehead said, Chuck's a grown man and can do whatever he wants to do. But that's when the state of California has to step in and protect the fighter from himself.
Yeah, and didn't De La Hoya at first, wasn't he knocking the whole Conor Floyd thing? And then after he saw how popular it was, that he said he wanted to step in and fight Conor?
Yeah, no, that's what started this whole thing with me and him. I'd always liked Oscar, respected him, talked about his fights and stuff. Then the guy comes out and starts ripping Conor McGregor versus Floyd. Then as soon as the fight's over, he says now he wants to fight Conor McGregor. This guy needs to check himself into rehab immediately.
Do you think that's what it is?
He's standing up at a press conference, rubbing his hands, talking about how cold he is and that he doesn't know any of the fighters, doesn't know any of their names. The main event, he doesn't even know how to say Chuck Liddell.
What do you think he's doing in MMA? Do you think it's just the way he's a little late and he figures he can make money off it? Or
I think he's snorting a ton of cocaine, and Google him. Google him. I think he's snorting a ton of cocaine and doing a lot of other things. And then, I don't even think he's involved in any of this stuff. I think there's a bunch of people behind the scenes who really do all the work and put this together for him. He snorts about 12 pounds of coke when he gets up in the morning and just shows up where they tell him to show up.
I love you. Yeah, I mean, it is weird to hear him try to get into to get into it and then just say how and then stay on the other side and try to be a competitor. I think just wants to get into the game, and he's probably a little bit too late.
It's not even that he's too late. He's not smart enough to get into the game. He's not smart enough, and he doesn't have the work ethic. This guy's a total, he's doing other things. He's doing recreational things that are keeping him from even thinking about competing. You know what I mean? You show up to a press conference, at the very least, I'll give you this one, at least know how to say the main event's name, okay? Yeah. Let alone, he literally lines up a bunch of guys behind him. He's like, I don't really know any of these guys or their names. Well, how about you write it down on a fucking piece of paper, you dope?
Yeah.
Okay? Write it down on a piece of paper and read the piece of paper.
Well,
he is. This guy has no shame. He's unbelievable. I just, some of the things that this guy has done, I would disappear and you'd never see me again. He doesn't give a shit. He jumps right back up there, talking in front of the media. He's hilarious.